So yeah, there's massive bias at Google, and I mean, obviously, this story shouldn't surprise anyone, but we're hearing time and time again from the mainstream media screaming about the radicalization of YouTube, of Google, of anything on the internet that is making people turn to the right. Well, that's absolutely not true, as we found out from a new academic study that Google massively has a left-leaning media bias. It's been revealed with this new percentages showing that the network that they choose to promote over anyone else, almost double digits than all the other media networks out there, the one that they choose is one of the most worst, egregious pushers of establishment talking points, pro-war narratives, fake news, bullcrap, and that, of course, is CNN. Now, this study, again, contradicts directly so many of the talking points, but I think the bigger astounding fact here is that a lot of this is happening as they recently lost 26% of their audience. Jason, we don't have a good relationship with CNN. They put a fake copyright strike against us, blocked us from doing live streams for over a month based off a lie, based off C-SPAN video that they claimed was theirs on our channel, took down, hurt our ability many times. There have been many confrontations that I personally had with many CNN anchors, but Jason, CNN, Google is choosing CNN? I mean, come on. There could have been some rational middle ground here, but what do you make of CNN being the #1 recommended bias of Google recommending it to its users?
Nothing surprising here. Not a thing. I mean, if you've seen how Google has delisted just about any alternative source, how it's even hard to find archived mainstream media outlets like Huffington Post from 10 or 12 years ago. I'm not saying that that was some kind of revolutionary outlet, but now when you type things in, a lot of things that I've covered, it is extremely difficult to find them on the internet. Forget about, you know, the InfoWars of the world or even like 9/11 Blogger, but it's been highly sanitized. Not shocking. Eric Schmidt, who was the head of Alphabet for many, many years, who ran Google for many, many years, was openly left-leaning, openly campaigned for Hillary Clinton, and was openly on the steering committee at Bilderberg. We've seen many hidden videos of these people talking about their bias. I wouldn't even say hidden videos. They're more like leaked internal company videos that we have seen them talking about these things. So again, there's nothing here, and I hate calling it a left bias. It's not. It's an establishment bias, and I get it. They're trying to make, Fox News into the anti-hero. But listen, when MSNBC talks about war and CNBC talks about war and CNN talks about war, it's just a different flavor of the same thing.
Yeah. Fox predominantly was also talking about war today, just this morning alone, repeating government talking points without questioning them or even looking for any evidence. So again, there's a good point to be made here that it's not really left or right. It's really establishment versus anti-establishment. That's really the big kind of bias. But this is based on, of course, 20 media outlets that are featured in Google's top stories in November of 2017. 62% of those outlets that were featured, that were highlighted, that were put above anything else, were considered left-leaning, quote, media sources. CNN accounted for the most recommendations, with 10% of the news being promoted to them. Over, of course, the next was the New York Times, which is 6.5%. Over, of course, then the Washington Post, which accounted for 5.6% of the results of what was shown to you. And again, CNN is the most ridiculous, silliest news organization out there. They literally have to pay airports to play their supposed news. I wouldn't even consider it news, but again, we saw the massive backlash after the Mueller report, with ratings from CNN, from MSNBC going down. And even with rigging the algorithm, rigging the system, they're still failing. I mean, what do you expect? They're a news network that literally had one of its anchors eat a human brain on television. They had another anchor literally espouse conspiracy theories about a black hole swallowing the Malaysian airplane that went missing. We have to understand, they're pushing the dumbassification of the American people through CNN that has been espousing Russian collusion nonsense for the last 2 years. Meanwhile, independent media like us, we get punished for it. We get downranked in the algorithm, and still somehow we're able to survive. But CNN still forced down your throat, still doing very, very badly. There was layoffs recently. But the bigger point I wanted to make here, Jason, is that Google and the big tech monopolies, but predominantly Google, with their bias, they not only just hurt allegedly people on the right wing and the alternative media and independent media and anti-war voices, they pretty much hurt the basic core foundations of our supposed representative government system. They have a huge, incredible power where they could shift millions of votes in any direction. They could change the outcome of political major issues with just deciding what they decide to show you and what you shouldn't see. This is having a huge bias, and as we're seeing, I believe that this is leading to the larger polarization, the larger divide and conquer agenda, which is pushing people to be more far right or more far left. Predominantly the far left is becoming bigger, and I believe this bias, I believe this kind of propaganda pushed onto people, recommended to people, shoved down people's throats is one of the reasons why this is happening, Jason.
Well, I think it's bull. I don't think any of this is true. They can't shift election results. They can say they're going to. They sure tried with this election. They showed you poll after poll after poll after poll that there was no chance Trump could beat this person in the primaries, or Trump could beat this person in the primaries, or Trump could beat Hillary Clinton in the presidential election. Guess what? He did. This is all nonsense, dude.
But Jason, that's an anomaly. That was rare.
It's not an anomaly, Luke, stop buying the propaganda, bro. They can't shift it millions. They've tried. It's nonsense. They can write all the articles in the world. They can suggest you all the nonsense in the world. It doesn't shift shit. Okay?
I disagree with you on that.
Well, you're wrong.
Look at the effects.
The numbers show you're wrong. This is the hype. This is what I'm trying to tell people. Folks, do not buy into it. What happens when
you think Google has no power to change elections? You think
none.
Google has no power in highlighting and downranking and deciding what people can and cannot see and censoring and deleting other voices? You think Google has no power in that way?
None. Let me repeat it. None. Let me explain why, okay? And this is going to be a hard lesson for people that still buy into this nonsense, left, right, possible civil war paradigm. It doesn't exist. It exists in small pockets of insanity. Hold on. Let me finish. Let me point this out. Listen, the people that go to Drudge for their news, they're going to Drudge for their news. The people that go to InfoWars for their news, they're going to InfoWars for their news. The people that go to Breitbart, Huffington Post, New York Times, I could continue. They're going there. They've largely...
Can you show the People Press article that I have lined up here, Jason? And let me know if you're done.
This is from 2014, prior to the presidential election that shocked the world. And again, this shows nothing. It shows nothing.
Yeah, but Jason, according to that study, it got worse. People are being divided more and more. They're seeing less and less common ground. There is a huge division. I do sense it amongst people because you see it in the culture. You see it amongst how people act and interact. Yes, there is divisive divide and conquer agenda out there that wants people to fight. But I do believe that this is spurred on and in a way becoming legitimized by the information that people see and don't see and are allowed to see and are not allowed to see. So I believe that is a contributing factor to this larger kind of hatred and this larger kind of tension that is building, that is kind of radicalizing and pushing people in these polar opposites. Now, we could agree to disagree, but if you look at the data, you look at people having strong left-wing opinions and strong right-wing opinions, those are increasing, and the amount of common ground is moving away. And if you don't call that kind of a radicalization, especially moving to the extremes of their ideologies, I don't know what is, Jason, to be honest.
Well, you're wrong, because there is no extremes. You see them again in pockets of, oh, I'm going to have a rally. Oh, I'm going to have a counter rally. When you walk out your door, most people don't care. Do you get the occasional insane person that pulls off somebody's Trump hat? You bet that you do. Do you get the occasional insane person that salutes a white power symbol? You bet you do. Those happen. They've happened forever. Does the media hype that up? Sure. Listen, when you look at this
Google
study,
hypes that up, and Twitter hypes that up, and social media hypes that up, and that's why I believe that this is something to worry about and to talk about, because I believe that this is prevalent.
Let me ask you something, okay? Who are the huge personalities that don't have TV shows on Twitter that are left-leaning? Who are they? They don't exist. They don't exist, dude. I'm telling you now, this is my point. They don't friggin' exist. And then you look at the right wing, okay, and who are predominantly promoted on Twitter. Well, it isn't the one with the TV shows, is it? It's the Ben Shapiros of the world. It's the Crowders of the world. They have a spot. And even people like Tim Pool have a spot on the quote-unquote left. So you can't tell me, all right, that there isn't some kind, like, that's its own little universe. They promote it in the media. The real issue here is when you look at the top 20 sources, for instance, if you want to look at media manipulation, right? What does
that have to do with polarization, Jason?
There is no polarization, bro. Listen, it's the same polarization we saw.
Let's just leave it up to the audience to decide.
We saw 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's not increasing at all. It's not. It's not increasing. That's all hype in the media. Look, you want to know my concern about this study? Number 15.
That's your opinion, Jason. Jason, you're entitled to your opinion. The people will say, hey, yes, from my own personal experiences. From my personal experiences, from covering everything that I covered on the ground, from everything that I've seen on the ground, I believe the opposite of that, in my opinion. So again, when you're stating things, state things as your opinion, because they are. Because we all have our different
obviously, it's my opinion if I'm saying it. Can I get to why this article actually matters? Can I get around all the nonsense? It looks like Luke's frozen up, so I'm going to do what I want here. Look, guys, if you look at the number 5, this is where the concern should be, in my opinion. The number 15 news article or news source here recommended is Reuters. You know who else is not on that at all? The Associated Press. Why is that an issue? Well, that's an issue because they largely do just report the news. Now, that's not to say that there isn't sometimes an establishment or a left and right spin on some of their reporting. But the majority of those reports that you see out of Reuters, out of the Associated Press, are about as non-biased as you're going to get. So if we're going to talk about anything that concerns me about this recent study, that concerns me about this recent study. I don't believe there's a divide in this country. I got to tell you, I understand that there are some people that think that, there's ready to be a civil war. That's nonsense, folks. Most people just want a decent job, a decent place to live, and, their family to be safe. And that's about it. We all strive for different things, but we all have that in common. And I don't see people moving out of the neighborhood because, Mr. Thomas next door, he leans right, and Mr. Johnson, well, he leans left. And, there's too many Mr. Thomases here. I lean left. We got to get out of this neighborhood. I just don't buy into that. And who knows? Maybe you guys agree with Luke on this one. Personally, this is how I feel. Maybe, you buy into this left-right civil war nonsense. I think that they are trying to foment, people fighting with one another. I don't know that they're necessarily successful. But hey, let me know what you think in the comments. Are you Team Luke? Are you Team Burmis Brigade? We're doing 4 videos a day across 2 separate platforms, News for a Change and We Are Change. Please make sure that you are subscribed, you're thumbing it up, you're sharing it on social media. Most importantly, you're having your own opinion. You have your own mindset. You take all this information yourself and you use discernment, and then you get out there and you be the change you want to see in the world.